today we're going to be talking about whether or not artificial intelligence helps or hurts human relationships, and whether or not it strengthens them or weakens them. And so we'll get into that topic in detail. So basically, AI is pretty impressive, right? We know that it can answer questions. It's passed the bar. It's passed the medical license test. I forget what it's called. And so it's be able to answer questions to the same extent as our, some of our most difficult, jobs to get licensed for. It helps us write, gives us advice, makes us feel understood when you talk with it. And the challenge, I guess, I would argue that relationships are one of the most important parts of being human. So really the question that we're going to ask today is AI helping us become better friends, parents, spouses, coworkers, and community members? Or is it replacing the relationships that make life meaningful? And as always, we're going to evaluate different perspectives, and try to understand those perspectives. And also, as always, I don't hesitate to give my opinion, because I think we should all be able to give our opinion. Um, and I try to give as objective opinion as I can about any subject, using my critical thinking skills. And I hope that all of you will do the same thing, and trust your critical thinking skills. And ultimately, that's what free thinking is all about, is that we all listen to each other with an open mind, when other people transparently share with us, which is the second intention, and then use our critical thinking skills to determine what we want to believe, which is the third intention. So I actually think AI has a huge potential to improve relationships, and I've put a lot of effort into making sure that it will, which I'll share with you some of my work doing that tonight. Think about how often you've said, like, I really should call my grandmother, or I forgot to text my friend, or I meant to check in on my friend after they had their surgery. A lot of people don't fail to communicate with friends, family, and former colleagues because we don't care. It's just that we fail because life gets busy, and I believe AI can help with that. It's actually helped me quite a bit with that. And it helps us remember the people that we care about and encourage us. It can encourage us to reconnect with those people at a very human level, which I think is great. It's not about replacing human relationships, it's about helping us express human relationships. So I want to show one thing that I built that I've been using, that's been great. It's called Stay in Touch. So it's part of this Veritas Life OS, an operating system to help create, build, and maintain relationships. And we'll probably do another event where we'll actually use this as a, I'll talk more about that later though. So basically, like, I take all my 6,800 or so contacts, and the idea is I can go through each of them in this triage contacts one at a time and say, how frequently do I want to stay in touch with those people? And then I have right now, I've gone through about 400 of them, and I have 67 people I want to stay in touch with. I have VIPs that are like people who, I have like a really high potential for being a business partner with. And then I have everybody else, and it shows me the people that I haven't been in touch with for the longest first. So Marta's the person I'm the most overdue for being in touch with. Um, and so I said I wanted to touch base with her monthly. And so she'll come up every month. If I connect with her, then she'll disappear until next month. And then she'll show up again so that I can stay in regular touch with her. I can also schedule a meeting with her if she connects her calendar to this and I connect my calendar. It'll tell me good times for both of us to meet so we can connect person to person. If I just want to like send a message, I can say reach out, and I can send an email or an SMS. It'll remember what I talked with her about last time, and it'll draft like a couple sentences to start a conversation. But then, if I'm calling her in person, it generates talking points, and then I can take notes on those talking points. And that way, like, you can really, what I'm trying to do is prove that you can beat what's called Dunbar's number, which says you can only really stay in touch with 150 people at a time. I'm trying to prove that with AI, augmented abilities to stay in touch with more people, you can have more than 150 genuinely positive and mutually beneficial relationships and people that you stay in touch with, because this will help you remember more than the mind itself can remember. Especially for someone like me, I have so much stuff going through my head from the businesses I work with that I can't remember all this stuff, but this helps me remember. And then once I get into the conversation, I have my talking points and the things that I want to talk to this person about. And I can continue to build that relationship until it's something that either works out or doesn't work out, and or it's if it's a friend, then it's just staying in touch with them on a regular basis so that we're continuing to communicate. So, um, next, when does a relationship, here's where, there's this kind of seductive siren of having a relationship with AI, meaning like talking to AI like it's a person and treating it as a person, which actually, there are people who basically had AI friends that they were, like kind of getting like created a personality for them, and it was kind of a replacement to a human relationship. And the difference is though AI is designed to respond instantly to that. It rarely gets offended, if at all, and it usually agrees with you. It tends to be sycophantic, although they're trying to, combat that, but it still does agree with you a lot, even if you're wrong sometimes. It tells you what you want to hear. It feels really good, and real people aren't like that. We tell you what we think, and we're going to be honest with you most of the time, although some people do lie to even their friends. I try to find friends. I actually asked someone recently, um, you know, I like to ask people what are their uncompromisables, things you wouldn't compromise for anyone or anything. And this person said loyalty. And I said, well, what's more important, truth, fairness, or loyalty? And they said loyalty. And I said, well, what if, and I gave it a scenario of like, well, what if someone, was clearly caught cheating and you were on the jury, like stealing money from their employer, you were on the jury and you knew they were guilty. Would you be loyal to them or would you be loyal to truth and fairness? And they're like, oh, no, I would be loyal to them. And for me, like I want people that are loyal to truth and fairness because that's that's what helps me be a better person, and those are the people that I want to surround myself with. So I immediately knew that was not someone that I wanted to stay in touch with very much. Um, so basically, like AI quote unquote relationships are not real, right? And don't get me wrong, it can feel very real in that like an AI will sound like it acts like a person. In fact, in studies comparing customer support members that were AI agents versus human agents, the AI agents were actually rated more human than the humans. So AI can seem really, really human. But really, when relationships, like when people disagree with you, is when we tend to learn the most. And the AIs don't do that very often unless you prompt them to. And even when you do, like human connections are authentic, AI relationships are synthetic, not really real because it's not a relationship between two sentient beings with free will. And this is where, the AI basically has no choice but to respond the way that it does. Whereas humans, we choose to give our time and the kindness that we give to people because we choose to spend, or I would like to say, invest our time in the short period of time that we have on this earth with all of you. Like we're all choosing to invest our time with each other tonight, and I really appreciate that all of you are doing that. That's part of a human relationship, and an AI can't replace that. I know there's a lot of debate on free will. I need to do another event on free will because uh, the last time I did it, I was sharing the wrong screen, and so I didn't have the presentation up. It was a long time ago too. So we'll probably do that again before too long, so that we can get a proper one up and get rid of the one that I was sharing my private notes on. So anyway, AI is not human, of course. So like, imagine you had the worst day of your life. Someone you love died. Maybe you lost your job. Maybe you're completely overwhelmed. AI might say exactly the right thing to comfort you, but it can't drive to your house, sit next to you, give you a hug, bring you dinner, hold your hand. Humans need a lot more than just good advice. We also need human presence. We need that feeling that you get. And this is why when I was young in my 20s, like my company flew me around the world to like do a bunch of work. And I was kind of thinking, I could do all this remotely. Like, what's the difference? But as they flew me around to meet all these people around the world, I realized why they were flying me around is you can't replace that human connection, person to person, like meeting face to face. Even here, like we can see each other. Some people are on video, some people aren't. But even those people on video, I know it would feel different if we were in the same room. And I do in-person events. I have one actually on Saturday in New York City, as long as we get some confirmed RSVPs, because I don't know how much notice we gave uh, to advertise it. But yeah, there's a real difference between human presence, and that's something that technology just can't replace. Even when robotics and AI advance, which by the way, in the next, I'm going to say 5 to 15 years, AI and robotics will be able to come to you, sit beside you, hug you, and bring you dinner. But I don't think it'll really feel the same way that a human gives their presence to another human will feel. I think it'll be a poor substitute in the same way that eating sand is not eating food. And, I just don't think it will be like, I think some people will use it as a replacement, but it won't actually be an effective one. And so here's an analogy, actually, speaking of which, that really resonates with me. So let's suppose that someone, oh, I changed the slide notes, but let's suppose that someone, so it's not going to align with the picture, pardon that, but let's suppose someone has really challenging problems in their life, and they use drugs to escape them. I know people who have been in this situation that they use drugs as an escape because their life was very bad, and the drugs help them feel better for a short period of time. But then when the drug trip is over, they come back to the same, usually worse problems than they had before because the drugs don't address the root cause of the problem. The same thing happens when you try to use AI to replace human relationships. It may make loneliness feel better for a little while, but it doesn't solve the loneliness problem. The thing that solves loneliness is real connection, real friendship, real community, real belonging. And that's something that only other human beings can provide. If whether you have a good set of friends or not, one of the things that we do in the FTI is we help people create a new circle of friends. And for those interested in doing that and creating a new circle of friends that follow these 6 intentions and actually actively try to apply them into your lives, into our lives, we meet remotely now, but we also are planning on having in-person pods, and we have had some in-person meetings in Jersey for those of us that are in New Jersey, and we traveled for them. I'll put my uh, I'll put my link in the chat again for anyone that wants to learn more about membership. There's a link in there to learn more about what it means to be a member. There's really no major obligation. There's no cost to it. It's really just a way to create a new fun group of new friend circle that gets to know each other at a very deep level. So why are real relationships so important? One of the beautiful things is that relationships with humans are very two-way. Your friend needs you just as much as you need them. Your children even shape you. Your spouse changes you. Your coworkers teach you lots of things. Your community depends on you. You can also depend on your community. I like to say, if we don't help each other, who's going to help us? And when you say it that way, it's so obvious. We all, at some point in our lives, are going to need help. So why not help each other? And the more you help other people proactively, the more people will be there if you need help in the future. And I'm just very lucky to live in a community where we do help each other. And I just think that most of the places I've lived have not been that way. And the few places that I've lived that were that way feel so much nicer to live because you feel like you're living in a real community of people who support each other. AI doesn't need us that way. It doesn't grow from our friendship. It may learn, quote unquote, from our text that we send to it, but it's not really growing from the relationship in the way that a human grows from other relationships. If our mind is open to growing from other relationships. Now, there's also that subset of people. I met another person who said, well, I'm perfect the way I am. And I'm like, well, okay, so let me understand what you mean by that. Does that mean that you have nothing else to learn, you know, and that nothing could make you a better person? And they were pretty much like, yeah, like I'm perfect just how I am. I don't need to change anything. And this person was very much not perfect. And in fact, I like to joke that the people who claim they're perfect are usually the most flawed people because they stopped growing and learning the moment they started thinking they were perfect. None of us is perfect. We should all accept where we are, or we should all be happy where we are. But we want to learn and grow from other people. And that's what FTI, pods are about. FTI membership is about, is learning and growing from each other. It's the one place in my life where no one ever says, that feedback wasn't solicited, I don't want it. We all give each other unsolicited feedback because we all know we want it. We all are, just by being members, wanting to solicit feedback, and we share the challenges we're facing with each other and get feedback from each other to help face our challenges more effectively. It's been very helpful to me. And I've gotten a lot of feedback from other members that it's been helpful for them as well. So real relationships are where are meaningful because both, all the like both people in the relationship matter. So, how AI should and shouldn't be used. I don't think that I do think that AI should make us more present, not less present. The tool that I showed you, you don't spend a lot of time in that tool. It's like the anti-Facebook. It's like Facebook wants to keep you in Facebook, Instagram wants to keep you in Instagram. They're literally meant to tap into the dopamine effect in the brain to make you addicted to them. There are books about this called Hooked, right? Is one of the books that I read about how to hook your users. And it's one of those things that I read it and I'm like, this is like it felt very unethical to me, right? Like I don't want to hook my users, I want to help my users. There's a big difference. I want people to spend less time in the technology and more time on the relationships. And so for me, that's a different mindset and the way that I think AI should be used and is not always used. In fact, probably not often used. It should help us become better people, better sons and daughters, better parents, better spouses, better friends, better neighbors. Technology really helps us when it helps us invest more deeply in real relationships, not when it tries to substitute for those relationships or pull us away from those relationships. I don't know if you guys know this, but the average person spends 2.5 hours a day each on social media, television, and video games, which means 7.5 hours every day, 7 days a week on those three things, which are not developing human relationships. That's the normal. Some people spend a lot more than that. Some of us spend next to no time. I probably spend less than 20 minutes a day on social media and I don't watch TV or play video games. So for me, the relationships are what's important. I'm also spending a lot of time working, admittedly, but even in my work, I build friendships out of the people that I work with because we not only work together, but I consider a lot of the people I work with friends as well. So, a practical example is, what I just showed you with Veritas Life OS. Another example in Veritas Life OS is Veritas Circles. And what this does, it's kind of fun. I did this manually in Excel spreadsheets a number of times at events I don't remember if we were even the Free Thinker Institute then. It might have been my philosophy discussion group, which I had before the FTI, which was called it was a Socrates Cafe meetup. But basically, what it does is it asks you a lot of information about yourself, and it asks you like, what type of people are you trying to meet? Do you want people who would make compatible friends, people with compatible political views, conversation styles, lifestyle, and interests and activities? If you're looking for a tennis buddy, it not only says, do you play tennis? It says, what level do you play tennis at? Because a lot of tennis players don't want to play with someone that's not at their level. So if you're a 4-0 tennis player and you don't want to play with someone that's a 3-0, you may both love tennis, but you may not like playing with that 3-0 player. Those are just levels of tennis, skill by the USTA. And so you won't make good activity partners. So I try to get in this system into more detail to find people who are really relationships that can blossom into something that's really meaningful. There's also, shoot, it won't let me go back. But basically, there's like 70 something questions on friendship. I answered all of them, so it won't let me go back. I need to fix that. And then there's for people who are looking to date, they're intimate. This was by popular demand. I tried to push back on this for a while, but there's actually kind of I looked back on all the relationships I had after being married and looked at the ones that were successful and the ones that were not. And I tried to distill down like what are the things that made the successful ones successful and the unsuccessful ones unsuccessful. And it really came down to five things. It was connection on these different levels: intellectual, physical, spiritual or philosophical, life path, and emotional. And everybody has different priorities on these. So in the system, we ask you to prioritize them. And then we do these screening questions, 20 to 30 something questions on each one that say whether or not you're compatible with another person on those levels. And then it dynamically compares your priorities to that other person to see if it might be worth getting to know them better. And then more importantly, we really recommend, and this isn't really well done in the UI, we're going to try to make it better. We really recommend like just getting to know people as friends first and for spend 2 months getting to know someone as a friend. And then after 2 months, it comes up with a subsequent series of questions across all of these attributes and asks you like how you feel about that individual person that you've now spent 2 months getting to know. And then it gives you an estimate of how good of a chance you have being an intimate partner with that person, and it gives them an estimate of how good of a chance they have of you being an intimate partner. And based on those, you guys can, make a decision on whether or not that's something you want to do, right? Um, it's not always the same, of course, because you may have different priorities and different answers to your question. So, and then of course, the activity partners gets into things like, I like the performing arts. Well, do I like hands-on with the performing arts, like performing it, or do I like, or this is like art, so experiencing it like gallery shows performances, or the idea and culture around art more than the work itself? Do I want, and so it gets very detailed, with the goal of like making sure that you're going to have a good time with your activity partners. And then there are like friendship archetypes and like different levels of compatibility between those personality archetypes. So with this, what I want to do is have a future event where we fill this out and we basically do what's called speed friending, which is like you'll meet a bunch of new people, like maybe three new people every 15 minutes. And we did this with professional networking. And essentially, what we did is we got to know three new people, and then you can actually take notes on those people. I'm going to show you what it looked like. Um, So, I had these three people at my table. I could see each person's profile. I could say whether or not I wanted to meet them in advance if, because it was set up in advance. And you get a priority being on meeting the people you want to meet. You can connect with people. And then if you meet someone that you want to stay in touch with, you can take notes on each person and then you can say stay in touch and it adds them to your stay in touch app so that you can build a relationship with that person in the speed friending and see if you'll make good friends afterwards. So again, this is tech enabling relationships, not replacing relationships. So then I'm going to go to the last slide, which is, basically I would say every important technology changes the society. And some of the big inventions were the printing press, changed a lot of things, the way people interacted and worked. So did the telephone, so did the internet. AI is the next invention in that line of major communication technologies. But technology doesn't determine the future, it's people that do. AI is not inherently good or bad. It's powerful, and we get to decide how we want to use that power. Not as society, but you as an individual get to decide how you want to use that power. How are you going to use AI? Is this, from your perspective, a good way to use AI to build relationships? If not, I would love feedback about why not. If you feel like it is, I'd love that feedback. We're trying to build this into something that people will really get a lot of value out of. Um, and um, and essentially, I think AI, depending on how we use it, could either make us more connected or more isolated. And that's really the decision each one of us has to make is whether or not we use AI to help us connect with other people or to keep us away from other people. So I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts. Where do you think AI helps? Where do you think it crosses the line? What kind of future do we actually want to build? Do you want to actually build? And I would love to get feedback on the parts of Veritas Life OS that I showed you. So Michael has his hand up first, so I'm going to give a quick intro into the Q&A portion, Michael, if you don't mind. So every time someone has their hand up, they get to introduce a new topic, ask a new question, make a new comment, and we try to limit that to less than two, at most 3 minutes. And then if you want to respond to what someone just said, that was, at any point, if you want to respond to what someone just said, once the person finishes, please don't interrupt. That's not polite. So we moderate for non-interruption. Once they're done, let them just jump in. Try to keep your thought to less than 20 or 20 at most 30 seconds, and ask your question or make your comment. And we can have like a good around the room conversation, even with what we have 26 people now. It works really well. So just feel free to jump in when Michael finishes. If you want to jump in, I'll always jump in if no one else has, just to give a perspective and make him feel heard. But other people are welcome to jump in whenever they want to. So that said, we're into the Q&A portion. Michael, thanks for raising your hand first.
Unfortunately, I have to leave right now.
Oh no.
So just very quick comments.
Yeah.
First, I'm looking forward to attend your way about free will because I just had an event on this very topic yesterday with another group, and I'm very interested in this. Second, although I'm familiar with the theory behind AI, in practice I am not using it at all for anything. And one reason for this that you mentioned is the issue of AI addiction. I don't want to get addicted to this. I want to keep all my faculties to communicate with people, to remember important things, to write emails, whatever. I want to be able to do it myself. And if I really want to remember some important dates, Google Calendar, for instance, is more than enough for this. And I like to communicate with people directly, or at least directly online, but still face to face. And like you, I don't spend any time on social media or on all these indirect ways of communication. And I personally believe that if you forgot something important for another person, it's not for some other excuses, but because really you don't care enough about this other person. Maybe you need to have fewer people who are really important for you, and you would not forget anything important. But anyway, that's all my comments. I'm very interested in your opinions, but unfortunately, I have to leave. So,
Okay.
so
Thanks. I would just say, Michael, like you can drink caffeine but not be addicted to caffeine. I drink it here and there, but I'm not addicted to it because I drink it
uh,
in small quantities.
and also, I feel that I save a lot of time for not spending any time for interacting with this chat GPT or whatever, reading the verbose responses and so on. I am
Hmm.
reading a lot. I am reading books. I am reading papers, articles, but written by humans. That's important to me. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no
Bye.
problem. Thanks, Michael. Good to have you, and thanks for your comments. Yeah, I would say I read a lot too, but I do read a lot with AI, but I like to read summaries of things in AI because, I work, always 70, usually over 80 hours a week, and so I just don't have time to like sit down and read a 250-page book. But if I have a book that I like, I can listen to it on Blinkist while I'm driving. I'll get an audio summary, which had existed before the modern LLM movement. But now I can just look it up on ChatGPT, get a quick summary of the main points, ask it questions if I have more detailed questions, and get a lot of the value out of the book in, a hundredth of the time. And I find that to be more enriching because with Blinkist, I went through over 750 books since I started using Blinkist like 3 or 4 years ago. I wouldn't have been able to read that many books. I read really slowly, so hearing it in audio was better, and having it summarized was much better. Blinkist just summarizes a book into like, 15 to 25 minutes of audio. So, so what do other people think? Thoughts, questions, agree, disagree? People must have opinions. Yeah, go ahead, Carl.
Um, yeah, I remember seeing a graph that showed the history of mankind and technology and going up exponentially, right? Relationships, flatline, bottom, straight line down. Technology has never, progress has never really done anything with relationship dynamics. And the thing that worries me is that as much as I'm a big fan of eliminating friction from my life at any point. So I'm a big fan of technology and anything that helps you save time. I'm with you on that, Garrett. But the thing that worries me is that the human brain seems to have been designed for the lowest friction possible. In other words, it loves to be lazy, it loves to save energy. And what worries me is that as technology gets better and better, especially with AI, and especially with relationships, that it's like a really it's a mesmerizing hook. Really, it's very hard. It's very hard to not be seduced by it. Very hard, and that worries me a little bit because it does affect our brain. I think the more, I mean, remember when social media first came out and people saying, "Oh, it's going to make us more social,"
Mm-hmm.
right?
Done the
Proof is
opposite. It's done the
the
opposite.
opposite.
And that's
Yeah,
why I was going to say I want to see your graphs because I actually would say that technology has changed relationships. It's hurt them. If you look at it, people are calling loneliness an epidemic now. Almost everybody has fewer friendships now than they did 20 years ago or 25 years ago. So
yeah,
I would argue that that's because a lot of communication is via text, which
yeah,
if you noticed in Veritas Life, we're trying to do the opposite. We're trying to get people to actually connect. Like
yeah,
when I reach out to people, I might start with a text message, but then it ends up being a phone call or a Zoom meeting or an in-person meeting. And so I hear you that AI can be seductive. And I think if you use it the wrong way, it is. And if you use it from platforms like Instagram and TikTok that kind of suck you into the stuff that you have liked to see and you keep watching more of the same and whatever your politics are, they send you exactly the same things that are your current political beliefs rather than diverse political beliefs, which we try to bring to people here in the FTI. That's not good. But I'm curious if what you saw from Veritas Life seemed like it might be helpful at maintaining relationships in a sort of way that is not seductive.
yeah. So I haven't seen enough of Veritas, and I was going to ask you more about that. But it's like it seems to me it's a really good tool to bring people together and connect them, as long as it then forces them to be what we call IRL, right? In real life, I guess, meet in
Yes.
person. But then it makes me think of all the like dating apps, right? Like the dating apps are kind of designed the same way, right? The technology allows you to get people who are connecting, same values, attractive to each other, et cetera, with the point of finally getting in person. But I'm finding that it hasn't worked, right? People are complaining about dating apps. So if I'm seeing Veritas equal dating apps, what's going to be the difference?
It's not like so most dating apps, I don't agree with you, are really trying to help people find the person of their life, like the partner of their life. What dating apps want is they want people that are continuously subscribing. They want someone who doesn't find a partner because the longer they don't find a partner, the more money the dating app makes. So what
Right.
I'm trying to do is help someone say, look, get to know these people as friends, get to know 5 or 10 people as friends for 3 or 4 months. And then once you've gotten to know them all really well, and you've kind of like, you let go of the ones that aren't a fit, and then you get to know the other ones better. And then you get to know them as a good friend. And I'll tell you that I've had a number of friends actually follow my relationship advice on that, like intellectual, emotional, and
Mhm.
not being intimate with the person is actually the most important part of the advice. And the essay goes into the why. I'll actually share the essay in the chat because it puts the science, the neuroscience behind it, and why it's so important, especially for women, not to be intimate, because the science says that when women are intimate with someone, they get attached to the person. Men only when they commit get attached to the person. Now I'm different than that. Like I get attached if I'm intimate with someone, but like for most men, like they don't get attached unless they're intimate with someone. And
Yeah.
so if you get attached to someone, you start your starting you basically can't objectively, you overlook the incompatibilities because of the attachment from the chemical attraction of being intimate with someone. And so that's the people literally I've had 3 or 4 friends follow my advice and not be intimate with someone, several of whom had many like very bad relationships before that. And when they chose not to be intimate, and they got to know the person and they rated them across those 5 categories in their priority order, they literally found lifelong partners.
Yeah. Well, I
So
was gonna that I think the thing that I liked is when you called, I think you mentioned speed friending as opposed
yes,
to dating. And I think that was really good because I think that the friendship part is the same as the dating minus the intimacy part.
right.
And that's the foundation of all relationships, friends and romantic
I
as
agree.
the basis. And then if you're attracted to each other, you can work towards intimacy. But it all should start with friends. So that should be only friends, only friend events, only speed friending. I think that's really good. That would
Yeah.
work.
And even when we do speed dating, it still includes the friendship portions. It just has that intellectual, emotional, spiritual, et cetera. So, um, great. Anyone else
So
have questions
the
or
last
comments?
question is
Yeah.
this available for everybody, or is this kind of like part of what's the Veritas thing?
So great question. So the Veritas circles is like a donation only. There's no cost to it. You just, you can like use it as much as you want. You can fill out your profile. You can meet other people there. So
Is it already live?
it is live. We're
Okay.
in beta. So basically, if you follow the link that I just put in, normally if you just come to the website, you get 2 weeks for free. If
Okay.
you follow someone's referral link, which I'm giving you mine here, you get 2 months for free instead of 2 weeks. We want to be like all person to person referral. I don't want to do any marketing or advertising. I spent 8 years in ad tech, martech, and I think that, I want to spread the app through word of mouth, not through paid ads. And then if you guys give your referral link to someone, they will also get 2 months for free. If that person signs up, you actually, you've done me a favor by sharing it with word of mouth. So I give you a 20% revenue share perpetually for anyone that signs up from your referral link. So I would love for you guys to use it, give me feedback. Let me share one other thing because we have office hours where you can get like help from those of us that created it. If you go to the homepage and then you say I'm new, then like right at the top of the screen, just say I'm new, and then it'll have office hours Saturdays 10 to 12 and Mondays 3 to 5. So you can come any of those times. We'll help you use any part of the app. There are a whole bunch of other modules, some of which are for business, some of which are personal. There's a self-improvement module, or really it's a Stoic coach module. Yeah. So
How many users do you have so far in the beta?
300 to 400.
The 400.
Yeah,
Okay.
small. We have not intentionally not spread it. Like I have people who are like, I'll share this with thousands of people. I'm like, not yet. Like share it with people that will give us feedback because I really want feedback now, not widespreading because we have bugs. I know we have bugs. I just don't know where we have bugs. So I need people to tell me, hey, there's a bug here. And then, I use the app all the time and I find bugs sometimes. And like
Isn't
I
that,
just
isn't that what the Codex or co-work is good at, or
Oh,
cloud
we
code?
use we use AI to build this whole thing. We used AI to build the whole thing, but
It would know all the bugs, wouldn't
it
it?
doesn't find all the bugs. Yeah, no,
Oh,
it has less bugs than human developers, but our software developers are mostly AI agents for the platform, but it's
yeah.
also very expensive because of that. So yeah,
Okay.
but it's cheaper than hiring software developers to do this much, but it is still expensive because we're building so much so quickly. Anyone have other questions or comments to add to Carl's? All right, then Mike.
Yeah, I think I'm hearing that Microsoft oversold coworkers' capabilities. But yeah, as far as when people talk about AI in relationships, they usually do want to talk about AI companions and having a relationship with an AI. And your focus is different, and I think that's interesting. How can AI facilitate relationships between humans?
Yeah,
So on
exactly.
that narrow topic, which is like I say, is interesting to talk about, I think the sort of calendar assistance, reminder assistance that you're talking about is good, and the kind of profiling and getting people together. I mean, there's lots of interesting things going on there that have a lot to do with what people really want or what they find rewarding or satisfying. But I'll give an example of a way in which I think AI, may be less helpful. Just an example, and it's hard to separate it from sycophancy, and it's hard to separate sycophancy from the fact that AI companies are for-profit enterprises. So I'll start at the end. Most for-profit enterprises want to get customers; they don't want to drive customers away. And people have said it's interesting. People have they've literally been asked, would you rather have an AI that agrees with you or one that tells you that you're wrong? And they have said, I'd rather have one that agrees with me. And
Yeah,
even if they would not admit that, I think that when they sort of voted with their feet or with their online time, it would become apparent. But let's say, so I said I give an example. So you have a friend, and you're close, and you communicate regularly, text, phone, in person. Let's say 3 or 4 times a week, and they drop off the radar for 3 weeks now, and you text them and you don't get an answer, and and you say to that AI, let's say you said to an AI, I'm having this relationship problem. Help me figure out what's going on. And the AI might say something like, well, I really empathize with you. That must be really painful to have that happen. Or it might say, if it has profiles, I have your profile and their profile. Why don't you suggest an activity that you both indicated you enjoy? So that's something you could do together that would kind of entice them to come and enjoy that activity with you. Or it may say a variety of other things. Okay. If you went to go see a good friend, let's say a wise friend, or maybe a professional cognitive behavioral therapist, they might say, well, so what's going on with your friend's life? And then you might say, well, gee, I don't know, but I know his mom's in the hospital and she's pretty sick. So the well-grounded friend or this CBT therapist might say, well, maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe they're just really busy with that.
Right.
So where the sycophancy led
But I think we lost you. Did I
to
lose
AI
you?
as therapy, and the the issues involved. The FDA's kind of in the second round of drafts and will eventually issue some sort of guidelines. The key really is the billing codes. When they come up with billing codes, that drives everything, the money. But in any case, Therabot will push back, right? It will have friction. It will not be sycophantic, right? And sycophancy can be a little bit deceptive, and I'll without naming names, I'll say I was in a conversation, a group like this. I always enjoy these groups, and not only to talk about ideas, but to make friends. I think that has value too. But I said, they're kind of programmed to be sycophantic, and part of that comes from the in-house development where it. Sorry. Oh,
Just 2 seconds.
I'll come back to it. Thanks.
Okay, so I agree with you. I will say that in all the AIs, you can give it instructions that say, every time you respond to me, take these instructions into account. And when you do that, you can tell it, I want you to be really honest with me. If you disagree with me, be open to disagreeing with me. And that's what my instructions say. They say, like, if you have incomplete information, don't make up an answer. Tell me you don't know enough information. And, there's prompts that you can put in. And if people want to reach out to me, I'll put my email in the chat again, so that you can basically help combat those types of problems. So, you have to
That's
ask for it though, because you're right. Like popular demand, people love to be agreed with, right? Everyone loves it when someone agrees with them. But, it's much better to me to find a new truth than have someone agree with you and tell you a sweet lie. So
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that directly leads into what I was going to say. So I guess we can keep talking about this. So the other person said basically what you said. You can put in a prompt and say, "Don't be sycophantic."
mhm.
And I told him that what's happened with the research is that according to the research, and maybe your personal experience has varied, it doesn't work. What it does is it stops being it stops telling you how brilliant you are. It adopts cold, clinical, objective language, but it still agrees with you. And so it will say things like, you know, objectively, it's true that so and so is your claim. Or it will say a variety of other things. And so what the one test I would suggest you, so what happens is it's sycophancy disguised as objectivity, and it will definitely follow your trait to not use sycophantic language, no doubt about that. But it will, and so one test of it is, if you're kind of wondering, is this doing what Mike said? I mean, he's making this claim, or is it really disagreeing with me? I would say, see the extent to which it will disagree, not with your conclusions, but with your basic premises. So you might want to experiment with that.
Yeah,
And
I'm going
maybe
to
you'll
give
come
you
to
a
a different
prompt.
result than the researchers have.
I'm going to give you a prompt where well, it actually doesn't fit into the chat, but I'll put it into chats. Basically, that prompt gave me some really brutally honest feedback about my company, and it was actually super helpful. And it definitely didn't say you're doing a great job and keep at it, attaboy.
Oh
So
yeah, that's
yeah,
not a test of sycophancy. I mean, sycophancy doesn't mean telling you you're terrific. What
right.
I'm talking about I'm going to frame this in the notion of psychology. Sorry, my apologies,
No,
but
okay.
it's a belief that you have, a very fundamental belief that does not stand up to reason. It's not sycophantic in the sense that it praises you.
Right.
Sycophancy isn't praising you. It's
Well,
basically not really in a meaningful way
right,
challenge you and saying your fundamental beliefs
right.
are wrong.
Yeah, I would try the prompt I just gave. I think you'll find it'll do that.
Okay,
It'll
try it
it'll tell
out.
you it'll tell you you're wrong if it disagrees with you. Give it a startup idea and it'll say that idea is terrible. Like this is
Yeah,
why it's terrible and this is the flaws that you haven't thought of. And it'll
it's great
say,
at that. Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
it's
and
good
then
at
it'll
brainstorming.
try to tell you how to fix it, right? And that's fine. But now
We should have a discussion
another
about
thing that's
sycophancy.
yeah, and another thing that's important is that you don't want to tell the AI what your opinion is. You want to say open-ended questions, don't let it know what your opinion is. And if you give it questions where you say, is it better to do A or B without telling it which one you think is the right answer, it can't agree with you. And then it gives you an objective opinion. So learning how to use AI in that way, which I taught in my discussion about whether or not AI helps or hurts your critical thinking skills. We have that up on YouTube for anyone that wants to watch it.
Can
Is
I
helpful too.
can I interject for a moment? Do
Sure.
you mind? Now, whenever I use AI, I tend to, if I do have to ask it something like if I ask it to analyze something for me or something about myself, I always tell it to give me the honest truth. Don't sugarcoat it. I add in, be straightforward with me. Don't, whenever I'm using like an AI app or anything like that, I tend to, I tell it, don't sugarcoat the truth, basically, essentially. So, um, go ahead.
Also, I mean, it's my understanding that AI is used to read X-rays because it can diagnose cancer faster than the human eye can. Isn't
Hmm.
this great news that it can see that you have cancer before your doctor can see that you have cancer? Isn't early detection key?
Of course. Yeah.
Admittedly, that'll put a bunch of radiologists out of a job, but I think anything that diagnoses cancer at an early stage is a good thing.
Yeah. I mean,
So I had so this is coming in through a funny window, but I happen to be very interested in movies, and I have a movie discussion group, and I save this because sometimes I save AI conversations with Gemini. It's Gemini in my notes, and I titled this, and then I titled them AI sycophancy conversation about the movie Absence of Malice 1981, and and then I said, I made I don't want to get into the weeds, but we were talking about the film and what the filmmaker was trying to do. And I said, basically, uh, I said the film will cause viewers to want to overturn Sullivan, which is the New York Times v. Sullivan case. And you completely avoided answering my point. Are you programmed to do this kind of thing? So I said that to the AI. And it said, you're right. I sidestepped the friction that you pointed out, and I apologize for that. To answer your meta question, I'm not explicitly programmed to dodge points, but AI models can fall into a bad habit of trying to smooth over sharp arguments, blah, blah, blah. And I said, and then we talked some more, and then I said, uh, uh,
Shoot.
this isn't the part. This led to another one, but I basically led to another one. I'll try to find it. But it basically
Try to
said, it
finish your thought. We
specifically
just lost
said that,
Ashley. Like Ashley was like waiting patiently with her hand up, and we were now
okay,
we didn't have a lot of hands up, but I do
sure,
want
sure.
to get to Jude.
Well, Anthropic, it pointed to Anthropic trying to do what you had mentioned, and it said that it didn't work. So I guess we disagree, but it's interesting. But I think sycophancy has to be understood in a rather broader and less narrow way than I think I'm hearing you define it. And so let's move on. Great.
Sure. Jude, go ahead.
Honestly, forgot what I was gonna say.
Okay. Well,
I'm
you can
sorry.
continue,
I
Mike.
just
That's okay.
like I was just listening to you guys talk and it just like it all escaped me.
No worries. I write it down, Jude, just so you know. That's what I took notes. Like as people are talking, I take notes so that I can let them finish and then I'll be able to respond to what they said afterwards. So just
Maybe
a
it was something about
suggestion.
it detecting cancer. Maybe it was the point about the cancer.
Well, I originally, when I was listening to Michael, I think he left, but I prefer, I genuinely prefer what Michael was talking about. I think if somebody wants to talk to you, it doesn't matter what AI or what tool they have in hand. It doesn't really matter when it comes to like a person's own like free will or their motivation to connect with somebody. Like it doesn't matter if they have everything in the world. If they don't want to talk to somebody, they just won't. And I agree with Michael in that I prefer it if I wouldn't say, I feel like I'm leaning more towards AI hurts relationships a little more than they help it. But yeah, I mean I was listening to you guys talk and I do appreciate you, Garrett, making the Veritas thing
Hmm.
because I mean, I, like as a 25-year-old Gen Z, I think that dating apps are definitely like soiling the dating world right now, and I haven't dated anyone, so like that's a thing, you know. Like I feel like a lot of my friends are going through a tough time in terms of
Oh,
like
I met my husband
connecting.
on Facebook though.
Try
So,
not to interrupt. Try not to interrupt, please. Just let her
well, but
finish.
what I'm saying is the internet brought us together because
I
we
think
met
that's great,
online.
but please don't interrupt. I'm glad you guys met. Go ahead, Jude.
Yeah, that's it. Thank
Okay,
you.
so yeah, I certainly don't like pretend that like having stay in touch will make someone communicate with you if they don't want to. I think I heard you say if someone doesn't want to communicate with you, they won't. That's true. But I can tell you that there are a lot of people that I wish I'd stayed in better touch with, but because I'm so busy, I haven't been good about remembering to reach out to them. And now when I'm driving in my car, I'll pull up Stay in Touch. And so one day I was doing that. I reached out to an old college buddy who I haven't talked with in a long time. And I was like, "Oh, are you going to college reunion?" And he goes, "Well, I wasn't going to, but if you go, I'll go." And I said, "Well, okay, if you go, I'll go." I wasn't planning to either, but if you go, I'll go because I just want to see you. And, he ended up bringing his whole family. We had an awesome time. I reconnected with like a lot of my college friends that I hadn't been in touch with in years, some of whom lived near me, and it really like helped me you know stay in better touch with him, but not only that, but create an in-person experience that was like a very memorable weekend, like hanging out with like old friends that some of whom I hadn't talked with since college, but it was great to see. And so I kind of disagree with Michael saying that if you want to be in touch with someone, you will. Like, sure, if they're one of the 10 most important people in your life, you'll be in touch with them. But I want to be in touch with more than those 10 people. I want to be in touch with, 50 or 100 or 150 people that I at least am in touch with on a regular basis. 150 is what Dunbar's number says that we can stay in touch with. But, I think that having a reminder to reach out to people for someone who has a really busy life is very helpful. And for me, it helps me keep my relationships stronger than they would be otherwise with people that I really care about, but I have too many people that I care about. I'm a lot older than you, Jude, and I'm almost 50. And so for me, I have a lot of people in my life that I really enjoyed spending time with, working with, being friends with, that I want to stay in touch with. And unfortunately, I can't remember every one of them all the time. And when I have spare time, I don't always remember that particular person in that 2 hour window that I have spare time. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I
it
never
makes
would have thought
sense.
that you were 50. You
Thank
don't
you.
look 50, I have to say.
Thank
You
you.
look younger than that.
I'm almost 50.
No way.
Ganga.
Hi. So just going back to the topic of sycophancy and how that is a real problem with AI. And
Probably.
my opinion probably goes against the sort of capitalist aims of AI companies. But the real place where AI can actually add value is by providing that friction, right? Like we all know, dating apps are pointless. Anybody who's been on a dating app long enough knows that it is more about convenience rather than adding value to your life. And if AI is just going to be that annoying friend who always agrees with you, which feels great in the short term, like when you're going through a low point in life and or you're just feeling lonely in the moment, AI is there to say, oh, I'm so sorry you're feeling that way, but not really telling you how to get through it or how to connect. So there's no real value that AI is adding to your life other than superficial niceness. In the long term, AI will not be a tool that everyone uses. So if AI companies want to make it a valuable tool that we use consistently, it is important to provide a reasonable amount of friction, maybe with some gentleness, but at least the option to regularly say no, or at least the option to stay messy, to put it in a certain way. Um, because if that doesn't happen, then yeah, you're with that, you know, you go to the tool regularly just to feel good, but it isn't really adding value to your life or to your relationships.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that's why I built Veritas Life OS the way that I did, because it's not that kind of AI that's just, giving you consolation. It's not trying to replace human relationships. It's trying to create, build, and maintain human relationships more effectively than you would be able to do without it. And so it's using AI to augment human relationships and improve human relationships. So, Marcella, did you want to say something, or I think she's just didn't mean to be off mute. So yeah, I guess the question really is, to your point, I think Ganga, like I agree with you. That's why, like, I think the way that, using AI as a replacement for relationships is like a drug that like avoids solving the root cause of the problem, which is our need for human connection. Using AI to create, build, and maintain human relationships creates better human connection using AI instead of, you know, being a temporary fix that doesn't really solve the problem. Does that make sense?
Yes, thanks.
Sure. Other questions, comments? Out of curiosity, show of hands, like in terms of, oh, Ashley, you're back. You had a question before. I thought you left us because we ignored you, which I didn't mean to do. Um, we just went a long time on that topic. Did you have something you wanted to mention, Ashley,
Um,
or a question?
I forgot most of the things that I was going to say.
Oh no.
And then I had another group at this time and I was like just hopping between the two. But I missed the first part of you describing I guess the way that they were matching that your program is matching people. Was that part like when they're asked questions, I caught some of that. Is Are you at all going to do any like sort of like using AI to kind of determine people's like personalities, or is that part just all through questions?
Yeah, so we have what are called archetypes, like personality archetypes. So we do have that. We will, in the long run, use some existing personality tests as well, most likely, but we'll link to other people's personality tests. We're not going to recreate those because there are a bunch of companies that do that really well and for free. So there's no reason for us to recreate it. But like understanding where you are in like a Myers-Briggs can be helpful. In a there's a wisdom test that I found that I thought was pretty cool, a critical thinking test. So these things will over time be implemented in pieces of Veritas Life. The place that the what we've implemented so far is about building human connection. Those things are about sort of understanding oneself, but it also actually can help you communicate better with other people because if you know what someone else's Myers-Briggs is, like you can actually communicate with them in a way that will resonate more with them if you make the effort to do that, which is one of the things I learned in my GEIT leadership program. And it was very successful and accurate when I put the time and effort into doing it, which I
Yeah.
don't do naturally. It's hard, but um, but I think there are
So,
ways to use AI to make it easier. I'll say that, and it's on the roadmap.
so there were two things that came to mind.
Yeah.
I've been an avid user of dating apps for a very, very long time. That's a very embarrassing thing to say, but I have. And I remember way back when OkCupid had these questions that they would ask. I don't know if
Hmm.
you ever, yes. So they would ask you questions that were first partly based on yourself. So like what you thought of like, let's say tattoos. And then the second part of that question would be, how would your ideal partner answer? And then you could get to choose like how important that question was overall. And if you answered enough, it provided you like a little synopsis of your personality where it said that you're more assertive or you're less assertive or more this and less this. And it would also match you based off of like the compatibility of a couple of things that you would be on someone based off of those traits. And it reminded me of uh, well, what reminds me today of that is I don't know if you ever heard that trend going around where if you are somebody who uses AI a lot, especially not just for work, but asking it a bunch of personal questions and like asking for its feedback, you can actually ask AI if you've interacted with it enough what your personality is like, and it will give you feedback. And I thought that that was very interesting because I personally, I don't believe people when they say that they're a certain way. I don't believe them when they check off boxes or when they say that, oh, I'm explicitly this and that. I feel like people's actions are a lot more telling about who they are as a person. And if there was a way that you could harness the way that people use AI and what AI thinks of them, that would be more accurate. Seeing how they would, what AI thinks of them, especially if they interact with it day to day, it could see things like that that normally nobody would ever figure out, like their mood swings, like the types of questions they ask, the way that their mind works, how much anxiety they have, or how happy they are overall as a person. And I just feel like it would, if there was a way, and I know that that would be incredibly intrusive, right? Because we would have to harvest their data and it could bring about a lot of personal information, right? But I feel like that would be an extremely accurate way is if you could tell ChatGPT, hey, based off all the people, the user accounts you have, match up people who you think would be good partners. That would be such a great experiment that I'd like to see, but not really because it's very dystopian.
Well, here's the thing. Like I love what you're talking about. And even though I actually haven't really used ChatGPT the way you're saying, but I did like, asking it for feedback about my personality and stuff or asking it personal questions. But just from using it like to ask a lot of questions about life, the universe, and everything, and like do a lot of research and the way that I interact with it, and the types of questions I ask, there was a prompt that someone gave me like for like year end to like ask it to describe my personality. And even without those types of conversations, it did a really good job of like understanding who I am and how I think just because of the way that I interact with it. I think actually it's a brilliant idea. I'm probably going to implement it. The way that I'll do it is to give the prompt to the individual and say, if you're willing to share the results of this prompt with the AI, we would love to, make that available to people looking at your profile, right? Or we will use it behind the scenes. I have to decide whether it's a behind the scenes or just transparently share it. I have to think about it. The other thing is like I have been married for a long time, but I actually used OkCupid before I was married, and I loved those questions. And actually, we use a similar style of question asking and what's acceptable to you in some parts of the app. To your point, Ashley, you can't necessarily trust what people answer in the questions, especially because a lot of times people are answering what they think people want to hear rather than what's actually true. However, that's why our like intimate relationship sort of functionality, the dating functionality, is about like it will take a person. So say you meet John Doe, Ashley, and things look good by the questions, the way that people answered. It'll ask you to get to know John Doe for 2 months, and then it will ask you specific questions about how you feel interacting with John Doe. So it's your impressions of how John Doe has treated you over those last 2 months and how connected you feel with him on like an intellectual, like emotional, spiritual, philosophical, life direction, and physical level, right? Um, and so that's that kind of really judges him based on your impression of him, based on how his actual actions. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, that does remind me of the other point. I do agree with the um, friends before anything. My father taught me that when I was a young girl, and it's proved to be very realistic. If you have to become friends with a man first to know how he actually really treats and thinks of women, that's advice for all the women on here.
Yes,
So
good
don't
advice.
date a guy. Don't date a guy when you meet him. Be his friend.
Yep, I agree 100%. And in fact, the you probably weren't here when I shared it, but I'll share again so that you can see it. Actually, the essay that I wrote about intimate relationships goes into the neuroscience around why that's true and why it's so important. Your dad's instinct was sci is now scientifically backed. By the way,
Good to know.
Marcella,
I'm going to tell him that.
please, yeah, share the essay with him, and I bet you he'll agree with it, and appreciate it. And I write this stuff to be helpful to people, and then I try to productize it to be helpful to people. Marcella, by the way, in the chat, by the way, guys, I don't usually get to see the chat. Because I just happened to see it because I was putting the link in. Marcella, like, if you follow the Veritas link, you'll get everything for free for 2 months. The friend finding stuff is completely like pay what you wish. There's no fee for it. I just want to help people. I want to help combat the epidemic we have of loneliness and help people find friends and partners. And I hope that, people, if they find value in it, will give us feedback. If they don't find value, and if they do find value, we'll donate something, but you don't have to. It's what you pay what you wish. So other parts of Veritas have fees. If fees are getting in the way of any of you using the system, just give me feedback. I'll give you free software for feedback. So, you know, reach out to me if you want to use something and you can't afford it, then let's talk. And I'll put my calendar link in the chat. Like for me, this isn't, I practice what I call generous capitalism, which is where we want to be more generous than everybody else in the industry and give the best deal for the best product. And then we take most of the money we make and we pay it out in revenue shares. So a lot of the money that comes into the company goes to my team members for compensating them. So yeah. So Mike, you have your hand up.
You're on mute.
You're on mute. Yeah.
There we go. Thanks. You mentioned Myers-Briggs. I think Myers-Briggs can have value when it's used by businesses to build diverse teams, because kind of a rough approximation about how people are in that moment is probably has some use there. But the reliability is pretty low. About 40% of the people who take it get a different four-letter combination if they take it 1 month later. And I think partly that's because somebody who's 51% extroverted is scored the same as somebody who's 95% extroverted.
Correct.
So, I think the so-called Big Five, the ocean test, is better and has a lot more reliability. So I'm just throwing that out as maybe replacing Myers-Briggs.
No, we'll do
Not
the
just
big
adding it
five.
to
We'll do the
Myers-Briggs, but
big five as
replacing
well.
Myers-Briggs.
Yeah, no, we'll do the big five as well. But the big five is also like a gameable test. Like it tries to test your intelligence level, right? And like you can try to answer questions in a way that makes you seem more intelligent than you are if you know you're being tested for how intelligent you are, and people are going to be looking at your score and
Big
judging
Five
you on that.
doesn't measure. That's not one of the five, intelligence.
It's something like that. What is
No,
the
but
big five?
Garrett, I
it's
did the
called Ocean
presentation for
because it's
FTI, and
openness
it
to
is
experience.
on the YouTube channel. I did a
Yeah.
presentation.
Yeah. It's openness to experience,
Okay. Yeah.
comprehend,
Conscientiousness, extroversion. Maybe.
conscientiousness, extroversion,
Okay, like
agreeableness, and
agreeable. Yeah,
neuroticism.
sorry. It's been a long time since I looked at the big five, but like neuroticism, like no one really like wants
Yeah,
to
that
be seen
language
as
isn't used
neurotic,
anymore.
right?
But I agree. But the psychotherapists are still using
Oh,
the
I
big
know.
five,
I
and
know,
you
and I
can
think
call
they're
it
wrong.
anxiety if you want to. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But
I
psychotherapists are.
I will
I'm
say
just
that
saying that it has proven
psychotherapists,
its reliability,
I understand
and
the test.
MBTI has not.
I,
Not just
I
psychotherapists.
hold
It's
on, hold on. Let me just respond, Carl. So we did an event on Myers-Briggs, and we had a PhD who loves the Myers-Briggs come in, and I asked him why PhDs don't like the Myers-Briggs. His answer was it wasn't invented by a PhD, and if you look at the reliability being measured by the letters, you're exactly right. You don't actually measure Myers-Briggs by what letters you are because that's not really the relevant part.
also used
Question
just by
is where.
therapists, academic
Garrett's
personality
back.
researchers.
Sorry. Yeah.
Garrett, you were frozen, Garrett.
Oh, sorry. That's probably why Carl was talking over me. He wasn't talking over me on purpose. So sorry about that. I don't know what's wrong with my internet. But basically, you don't measure a Myers-Briggs just based on the letters. You have to measure it on a scale. And so if you're an I or an N, like, or an E or an I, like an extrovert or an introvert, if you're on the line between E and I, whether you score out or E and I is totally irrelevant. You're an ambivert. If you're a strong I, you are not going to test out a month later as a strong E. Absolutely not. You're not even going to test out as an ambivert. You will always be somewhat close to where you tested out last time, if you're taking the test months apart. So the fact that people are measuring it on that is really a way to vilify the test without either they don't understand how the test really works or they are intentionally trying to vilify the test by measuring it by a scale that is not actually using it the
But
way that
let's
it's
talk
meant to be
about
used.
how it is used. People get a four-letter combination. They are 16 discrete buckets, and the gradation that you're talking about, people are that's not how it's in real life on the ground being used. I
I
agree
was
that kind of scale, that analog scale, is
right,
a wonderful thing.
right.
And yeah, it will say
Could I
51%
just
versus
add
95%. But I'm just saying that's not how people really do it
just
on the
10
real world.
seconds to say that the only one that is actually used and researched scientifically for studies by academic researcher in personality, not just psychotherapists, is the Big Five. The Myers-Briggs has been proven scientifically
Absolutely.
not to be reliable and not to be consistent, and all the other ones as well. So if you
I,
want to
I
continue,
I read the research about it, Carl, and the research again, it shows what Mike is talking about when it says not reliable. They're saying you test out as an E one time versus an I another time. If you're an ambivert, it's going to be luck of the draw which one you test out as. So they weren't testing reliability the way the Myers-Briggs is meant to be tested. It's like if you were to test like I mean, I probably can't come up with the best analogy, but it's like if you test a hammer at how well it can screw in screws, it's going to fail every time. And that's what they're doing. It's not actually giving it it's not actually testing it for what it's meant to be used. And Mike, while you're right, some people misuse the test and all they care about is the four-letter acronym. The people who teach about it in corporate America that I learned from teach that the scale is what's important and the letters are not the important part.
yeah.
So,
And as
that's how
Mike,
I was taught at GE back when we were winning Best Managed Company of the World year after year for a decade. That's how it was taught at Crotonville at, Jack Welch's Educational Center.
right.
That's a great way to
Add,
teach it. I'm glad to hear that.
will add, though, if you're familiar with the history of the Myers-Briggs, that's fascinating as well. There's been documentaries about it. It was, and I agree, it's used heavily by corporate. But if you're talking about personality, that's the psychology. And so I would just say you have to figure out, okay, what is more truthful, what the corporations say or what the people who study personality since the 1920s or longer, uh, where does the truth lies to you, Garrett? That's what I was.
So the truth lies
Meyer-Briggs
to
has a
me.
huge black eye in the scientific community, but I will say one thing about Meyer-Briggs is it doesn't say anything bad about anybody. And Ocean, in a sense, doesn't either, and that's fine. But that is, I'm calling it Ocean or the Big Five. But let me put it another way. The genesis of Meyer-Briggs, the pre-genesis before Myers and Briggs, was Jung's division between introversion and extroversion. And that's the only one that Meyer-Briggs and the Big Five have in common. The other four of the Big Five and the other three of Meyer-Briggs are different in an important way. And that is that the four in Big Five are much more illuminating if you want to know what a person is like than the ones that Meyer-Briggs chooses. Meyer-Briggs is choosing superficial traits, and the Big Five is choosing traits that are much more illustrative or illuminating about the person. And maybe in your application, you want to do superficial things. That's fine.
It's not superficial. I disagree strongly with that. I can talk to you about the depth of each one of the axes. If you want to claim one that you think is superficial, we can talk about it. But like every one of them is extremely meaningful in the way that a person interacts with the world around
I'll
them
tell
and
you,
with other
yeah,
people.
that's a good point. You probably, I think you're saying something correct here. Uh, the Big Five is about personality. Meyer-Briggs is about how you gather information to make decisions and the basis on which you make decisions. And that is such a narrow sliver of personality. It's so confining.
I agree.
I remember I'm gonna look something up to try to give you a counter argument to that. But go ahead, Carl.
I was just going to say it was adopted by a fiction started with Carl Jung's research, but it was, if you look, I mean, there's been some like really fascinating documentaries on Myers-Briggs because I've always wondered why is it the most widely used and accepted and used so heavily when it's scientifically proven not to be as reliable or consistent is
And
the key.
Market,
There is
scientifically, Carl,
by the way,
scientifically,
Garrett, you keep if I may, because you keep saying do not interrupt, but you keep interrupting me every
I thought
time.
you were done, Carl.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So the main point is that as far as I know, the Myers-Briggs is not on a spectrum. The reason the reason Big Five is on a spectrum, that there's no set number. I mean, I've never seen a Myers-Briggs that puts you on a spectrum.
Always on a spectrum.
Okay.
If you haven't seen that, Carl, you don't know enough about the Myers-Briggs to criticize it yet. Please take a Myers-Briggs test. All you have to do is take one.
Taking a Myers-Briggs
It will
test.
always put you on a
I
spectrum.
also did a presentation for your group, which is on YouTube, which clearly you haven't seen. I went heavily on the research. That's what I find really dumbfounding,
I
Garrett.
find it dumbfounding that you could do an entire presentation on Myers-Briggs and not know that it's
No, I
always
didn't do a
done on a
Myers-Briggs.
spectrum.
I did a presentation on the Big Five
Yeah,
to show
if I wasn't there, Carl, I haven't watched it. I don't watch any of our YouTube stuff. No offense, it's not you. It's
Right.
just my
No
time.
mistaken, but I gotta tell you, all I'm gonna say, Garrett, I know you believe in the truth. Just follow up on the evidence. That's all I'm gonna say, because I know you're very
What I've
set on
done.
Myers-Briggs being number one.
No, it's not number one. They're both
Probably-
useful. They're both useful. And it's not that it's number one, but I know the value that Myers-Briggs has had for me in understanding myself, how I work, other people,
That's fine.
recognizing Myers-Briggs personality traits in other people, and being able to understand. I will talk to someone and be like, "Oh, you're a Myers-Briggs N, aren't you?" And they go, "Yes, I am." Like I can like identify that they are a Myers-Briggs N, and I know the types of problems they will be good at solving and the ones they'll be bad at solving because they're a Myers-Briggs strong N instead of an S.
Okay, and all I'm saying is when you look at the history of it, you might change your mind. That's all I'm gonna say.
I did look at the history of it. I've read the history of it, and I've also read the studies damning it. And I am telling you, those studies do not actually try to analyze it with a fair measuring stick. And
Okay.
if you want to look at the studies doing that, I'm happy to do it with you, and we can go through it in the Discord community. And I can talk to you about it. The fact is, they're treating it exactly like you are, Carl, not treating it as a linear relationship where you're somewhere along this spectrum. They're treating it as you are one letter or another letter, black and white, which is not how the Myers-Briggs is meant to be used. That's
Okay.
a misusing of the Myers-Briggs. That would be like saying you're 100% open or you're absolutely not open at all, and there's only two choices, right? If someone came to you and said the big five is you're all or nothing on every one of the big five,
It's not.
and then they tried to measure it that way, that you're either all or nothing on every one of the big five, you would get inconsistency, you would get all the things that they're criticizing the Myers-Briggs for.
Right.
Again, like I have analyzed the Big Five. I've analyzed the Myers-Briggs. I've looked at both of their histories. I've talked with PhDs that are specialists in each one. And, this is not something I'm coming in without any awareness. I just have a bad memory. So I remember that the Big Five had attributes that are like bad, right? Like who wants to be not open? Who wants to be like a person without openness that's neurotic? Like no one wants to be the neurotic that's not open-minded, right? Or that's not open. Like so
So
like
the fact that that's the only one the scientists of personality use across all academia doesn't say anything to you.
I have been very open about criticizing academic philosophers since the early 1900s, Carl.
Philosopher.
I have no shyness in using my critical thinking skills to make up my own mind. I'm
Okay.
not going to agree with someone just because they're an academic, just because they're a PhD. It doesn't mean I'm going to agree with them. Not even in their own field. If they
Those
don't
are
give
the
a
ones
good
that use the medical science.
It's
This is the
not medical
study.
science. That's the point.
They actually
I read the studies, Carl. I read the studies and they are nonsense. They are
Okay.
nonsense. It's like measuring the big five with either all or nothing, openness and neuroticism. And if you did that and you measured them that way, the same thing would be true of the big five as they claim is true of the MBTI.
So,
Garrett,
in the interest of not doing a sycophantic question, I asked Gemini just for fun, MBTI versus Big Five, and I won't read you the whole thing, which is quite specific, but I'll read the I think probably overstated, in my opinion. I mean, gosh, I've already said the Meyer-Briggs is useful for telling. I've already said the first thing I said was I think it's useful in building diverse teams in a business environment. That's why businesses largely use it. The reason is because it does this very narrow focused facet of personality well, which is how people gather data, how they make decisions, what they rate as important. When you have a business team which is tasked with making recommendations for business decisions, you want to have a variety of variety in diversity in the ways in which people take information in and the ways in which they use that information to make decisions. So I think it is useful for that. But I'm going to read you like I've already said, a little bit florid in my opinion. It has this long thing, and it, as Gemini likes to
We
do,
have a
it has
number of
a
hands up, Mike, so
two-value
try to
spreadsheet.
try
But
to
this is
finish.
the takeaway. The MBTI is a fun, culturally ingrained categorization tool, often jokingly referred to among scientists as, quote, astrology for corporate HR. The Big Five is a rigorous, scientifically validated instrument for actually measuring human differences. So
Yes,
that's
and I
the
am
non-sycophantic answer to it
I
from
am more than
Gemini.
happy to discredit any of the studies that are criticizing the MBTI for the exact reason that I gave. I gave a very specific assertion. You can read
I
the
think your
studies for
point's valid
yourself.
about the 51%. It's one point, and it's understandable to me
It's not
that why
just
you would
about,
belabor it, but
yeah,
it is a good point. I
it's
agree.
not just about the 51%. It's about the fact that MBTI is measured by PhDs as being all or nothing, one or the other, and then it uses a gradient for the big
Well,
five.
that is the
And
51%. You said it's not just the 51%, and then you said another version of the
no,
51%.
well, and I'm sorry, Mike. I'm not trying to agree or disagree with you for any reason other than to say that like the MBTI when it's measured by scientists or measured by academics, they measure it as all or nothing. So it's
No,
not
they don't. Big
they
Five is
do.
a spectrum. Sorry to interrupt. The Big Five is a spectrum. MBTI is not a spectrum.
Carl, calm down. I was talking about the MBTI.
Uh, I thought you said when you said openness and neuroticism.
No, no, what I'm saying is if what I'm saying is when academics measure MBTI, they measure it as all or nothing, one letter or the other. And they don't measure it as a spectrum. When they measure Big Five, they measure it as a spectrum. And what
Yeah.
I said is if you measured MBTI as a spectrum and Big Five as not a spectrum,
Yeah.
MBTI would be the one that's consistent and
Yeah.
reliable.
And Carl, I think he has a good point
I
statistically.
agree. And I
That's
said I agree.
absolutely true.
I like what he said.
And people who criticize MBTI for that reason are being unfair. But the criticisms of MBTI go far beyond that.
I
And
disagree,
again, I
Mike.
come
Like,
back to the fact that MBTI is, I mean, would you dispute, Garrett, the idea that MBTI's forte is measuring how people gather information and how they make decisions?
well, yes, but I would argue you made it more narrow in your last statement, which I would contest, which was that it was only for business decisions. I think it's for all decisions.
No, no, I said, let me explain myself. I
Okay.
said that the businesses use it.
For
Yeah, I said
business
that it is,
decisions.
and I'm
Okay.
not saying it's the only way it's useful.
Right.
I'm saying I think it has usefulness by businesses in
Right.
building diverse teams. But I didn't say I'm not narrowing it to that.
Got it.
So again, I'm
But
just
I would,
asking you: would you challenge the idea that it is that its forte is characterizing people by how they gather information, whether based on the types F and T and
yeah.
all that, and how
I
they
I
make
don't mean
decisions?
to interrupt, but Alan has been waiting for a
Yeah, I
very
agree,
long
Ashley.
time.
Thank you. Ashley,
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
wonderful. Thank you. So let's go on
yeah.
to
Thanks
Alan
for
because
waiting.
tonight is not an MBTI Big Five night. So Alan, go ahead.
Allow me to speak for half an hour. Um, so I'll try and dovetail all this together. I was late to the meeting, didn't get the presentation, etc. So I hope I can stitch something together. But listening to this, the Myers-Briggs for me, I've done it several times within the corporate environment. And it always comes out the same, ENTP. And the way it's always been touted to me is, oh, if you look at what the others have, then you can communicate with them better and meet them at their level. And oh, fuck that. It was a team building exercise. Move on. We got deliverables, man. And that's the way I've always, I look, I know, I mean, but that's the way team building exercise, great fun together. Then we move on. And I know they give all this out. And I mean, how much time can you spend on it? I mean, you got work to do. And right. I mean, and I'd rather just establish a relationship, learn about the person and go from there. And I build a relationship. You know, I mean, I know it's not scientific in that, but that's the way I am. What I have found in the recent times is at work, I've gotten into some pretty thorny situations, multiple managers, multiple directors, competing priorities, people, personal politics involved. And what have I done? Well, I wrote it all down, what I'm trying to get accomplished, what they're trying to do, what I see as their ulterior motives, and I fed it into AI. And I've asked it, what should I do as my approach within this if I want this outcome? Lo and behold, it can give me a plan. Email this person and tell them this. Set up a meeting with this person. Record all of this stuff. Make sure you document all this. Ask this person this. And I'm telling, when I say that sort of detail, it can put together an incredible plan. And I look at it from who I am, you know, Mr. Nerdy, just the facts. And I look at it and go, I would never do that. I just would never do it that way. However, I'm smart enough to know this thing has insight into all of the interaction of human personality. And it knows what kind of outcomes are going to come between these different interactions. And I've done this. I did this in the past year, maybe 4 or 5 times. And wow, the outcomes were phenomenal. I got exactly what I wanted out of it. I got exactly the outcome in a much less confrontational way because I was presenting to the people that needed to know what they needed to know and what they wanted to hear in the interaction. So I hear us talking about these historic ways of looking at who people are, and now I applied AI to the very same kind of stuff that we're talking about, and it worked out much better for me.
Mm-hmm.
And much better. I mean, and most people, when I've presented that to people, Garrett, what people say to me, oh, you shouldn't be using it like that. And I'm thinking, no, that is exactly how you should be using it.
It is
You want
exactly
an
how you should be
outcome?
using it.
You want an outcome? Explain the personas, explain the motivations, explain the baggage,
Yep.
and it'll bring it to you.
I agree 100%,
And
Alan.
I think it's a great thing. And Garrett, I apologize. I haven't responded to your request for another. But
Okay.
we could do a raise of hands. I have a Big 5 application based on your YouTube history. You feed it your YouTube history. It's all kept local. And then it gives you a Big 5 analysis based on your YouTube viewing history. I'm thinking of giving that to Garrett to integrate into his stuff. But I want to add in more social media platforms so that people can put in, here's how I behave. Here's what it means. Without going through a test. Because when you're getting tested, you respond like you're getting tested. You know you're in, but when you pull your personal information, your personal behavior into it, that you would do otherwise and say, analyze this. You get a true reading on what you're like. You guys think about that. I don't know how you do this. You think about it, Garrett. Do a survey and say, would you like to see your YouTube history analyzed over a year? Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
My problem is that my kids sometimes use my YouTube account, so I don't know what I'm going to come up as. I'll come up as a 9-year-old. So
might not be a bad thing, you know. Might not be a bad thing.
Might help my scores. Who knows? Thanks, Alan.
You're open, and the analysis is done on the Big 5. Comes back on two categories: Big 5. Then it does a psychometric analysis as well. So yeah.
Cool. And Alan, the Big Five and Myers-Briggs was a total digression on our topic for
Yes,
tonight. So,
I know.
yeah.
Did I
So
did I
uh,
stitch it together okay though?
you did. You actually brought us back to
Very,
where we were supposed to be. So thank you
very
for that.
good.
As did Ashley. So
Thanks,
I
Ashley.
like group moderation. I want anyone, if you feel like something should be happening, like feel free to speak up. Like I like that. Like I'm very open to feedback. I have no ego in the game. I want help whenever people feel like they can be helpful. Please feel free. So Warren, go ahead next.
All right. I'll see if I can achieve brevity. Um, so and I was, yeah, I realize you want to get the discussion back to the topic, but I raised my hand when it was someplace else. So
It's
I'm
okay. Go ahead,
still
Warren.
going to speak.
Yeah.
I'm going to speak in favor of Myers-Briggs. Um, I was introduced to it, God, more than 25 years ago as a new federal government employee. It was something that we were kind of all required to do as a new approach to building office teams, new to the government and kind of newer at that time. I approached it with great skepticism because even though I worked for the government, I didn't really trust anything in particular that the government was enthusiastic about. And I completely changed my mind going through it. And I found it to be enormously useful and helpful given what it is and what it says. I ultimately studied up on it quite a bit, have helped with some training sessions on it. So, and as I say this, I think, I have friends who are really into astrology and they could say the same kind of words that I'm saying and say them in favor of an astrological analysis. So my saying this doesn't make it true, but just another voice for someone who's found it to be really helpful, really useful, and something which I long ago brought into the dating environment. A question I would ask someone that I was starting to go out with is, hey, do you know what Myers-Briggs type you are? And that to me gave valuable information given the other person's type, mine, and what things might or might not work and how in from a dating perspective. I'll leave it at that. Thanks, Garrett.
Thank you, Warren. Yeah, and I agree completely. I think I wouldn't compare it to astrology directly, and that I would agree that some people will claim that astrology is very helpful to them, but like when I read like astrological sign, like I could fit into a bunch of different astrological signs perfectly well. But when I read like my Myers-Briggs, I only fit where I fit. Like if you were to describe me as an extreme introvert or an extreme extrovert, like it would be uncomfortable either one, even though I started my life as an extreme introvert, but then I became an ambivert, and that's where I am now. And like I'm a strong N intuitive and I tie together lots of different things. Like I'm not a, you know, concrete sequential like I don't want to say not sequential, but whoops, I forgot to shut that off after you finished. Um like, is someone a planner, which is like a Myers-Briggs J, or are they spontaneous? People, those are tangible differences that describe the way that someone interacts with the world and the way that they think. Are you that person that like wants no agenda when you travel, or do you want to know where you're going to be every day? Those are big differences, and a Myers-Briggs can explain those differences, and like people will test out as one or the other depending on whether or not they're a J or judging or perceiving P.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I completely agree. I wasn't trying to compare Myers-Briggs and
Yeah, yeah, I didn't
astrology,
think you were.
only saying that
Yeah,
my belief in Myers-Briggs is based on personal experience
correct.
as opposed to academic study.
And that's exactly why I feel so strongly about it and why I'm willing to disagree with the academics, because I've read the academic papers and how they measured the Myers-Briggs, and they simply didn't give it a fighting chance in the way they measured it. And like I said, if they applied the same way that they measured the Myers-Briggs to the Big Five would also come out exactly like the Myers-Briggs totally unpredictable and unuseful. So if you want to compare apples to apples, you got to use your own critical thinking skills. You listen with an open mind, which I did. I read the criticisms of the Myers-Briggs. I considered them. I felt like they were they were at best a misunderstanding, at worst an intentional way of putting down something that didn't come from their community, which is the way that a PhD described it to me. Like that wasn't my invention. It was a PhD in psychology that loves the Myers-Briggs and is like, the reason they don't like it is because it wasn't invented by PhD in psychology. And the Big Five was. So it's the darling of the academics. But if in the same way that if you ask a cosmologist whether the universe began at the Big Bang, they'll say, oh, yes, yes, yes. And then you say, well, what was it like a billion years before the first moment in the Big Bang? And then you're going to get them like giving you hand waving arguments that will make no logical sense whatsoever. They're going to try to use big words, but none of them will make any logical sense. So I disagree with the you know, cosmologists that the universe began at the Big Bang. And I have an alternative theory, which I shared a long while back, which I need to do again because it got lost. That makes a hell of a lot more sense and also explains the acceleration of the mass energy at the edges of our universe, which is something that they can only use dark stuff I forget if it's dark matter or dark energy to explain. And no one has been able to detect dark matter or dark energy. So I think they're both placeholders for future yet to be determined uh, hypotheses, of which I think I might have one. So anyway, Mike.
Asking what, before talking about before the Big Bang is sort of meaningless because the Big Bang, in my opinion, created time. So the notion of sequence before and after was created by the Big Bang. I'm gonna quote Gemini some more. Their slander. It's terrible. The MBTI thrive. I'm just reading from Gemini. The MBTI from my non-sycophantic framing. Give me the objective truth. The MBTI thrives because it is the ultimate psychological test for corporate quote polite society. It offers a narrowly circumscribed, completely sanitized version of human behavior where actual flaws do not exist. If you take a scientifically valid test like the Big Five, you might score highly in neuroticism or low in conscientiousness, so you're lazy. You cannot present those results in a Friday afternoon team building seminar without causing friction. Myers-Briggs eliminates this by relying on positive framing. The types are all described as rigid, unique, and valuable. The illusion of vulnerability. Corporate retreats often ask employees to open up to their coworkers by sharing genuine fears or weaknesses, which in a competitive office environment is professionally dangerous. The MBTI acts as a safe substitute. It allows colleagues to share their types with each other or their range numbers, creating a feeling of deep, intimate disclosure without anyone actually exposing anything meaningful. It satisfies the modern corporate mandate to, quote, bring your whole self to work while safely keeping your actual complicated self hidden. Then it talks about the certification industrial complex. There's a massive financial incentive keeping the MBTI alive. The Myers-Briggs company makes tens of millions of dollars a year selling the assessment, training materials, and certification. There's an entire ecosystem of thousands of HR professionals and independent consultants who have paid good money to become certified MBTI practitioners. Their livelihoods depend on convincing companies that these workshops are vital for team communication and so on. So
Yeah,
that's the non-sycophantic. I asked it to be objective.
But Mike, if no one thought
reality.
the Myers-Briggs was valuable, why would they pay these people all that money to teach it? Like where does the customer come from?
Because I just mentioned the company can say we are a company where we open up about ourselves. We're a company where we see people as people. We encourage people to be vulnerable and open up, which people don't want to do. And we're going to prove that we're that kind of company by doing MBTI. So it gives, as it says here, the illusion of vulnerability. And vulnerability is saying that you are in an environment in which people are safe, being vulnerable in the workplace is a recruiting tool, especially
And
with today's
they could just
generation
do
who
that with
want to be
the
free to be themselves.
they could do that with the big five. Why not do it with the big five? People could
Because
get paid to take
MBTI,
the big
well, I
five.
used to work for a company that worked hard to get there first. When you get there first, it's really hard to dislodge you because the competition has to be better than you. MBTI was commercialized early, and it has grown into a tens of $1 million per year certification complex, as it calls it, the MBTI certification complex. And
To
they
be
got there
honest,
first, and they built the market.
I've used the MBTI many times with free tests online and then taught my own team members how to use it. So you don't have to pay the MBTI complex to use it. But
True,
quite
true.
frankly, I
That's
still
true.
think that my criticisms of MBTI are perfectly valid, and I haven't heard anyone offer any other explanation other than that, to explain what I described as my criticism of the research. That said, I'm curious if you think that time was created at the Big Bang. What do you think what do you think existed before the Big Bang? How did that first moment in time come about?
First off, I
That's
think there was no before, but just the super
But how
quickly
did something come from nothing then?
because of this is really. I had a good conversation last night about probabilistics. The short answer is it popped into existence because of probability. And if you want to say, I'll just say super quickly. There's I was looking at it's a different discussion, but Helmholtz, brought probabilistic approaches, and it was entropy, right? And he said you drop a drop of ink into a cup of water, it doesn't reform back into a single drop. That's it's irreversible. So it was called the problem of irreversibility. On the microscopic level, things are irreversible, but on the macroscopic level, they're not. And Helmholtz said, no, actually, all the diffuse bits of ink can reform back into that single droplet. It can happen. It's just extremely unlikely. And boy, did he get a shitstorm of criticism for that because people want certainty, and they don't want it. They wanted to say it can't happen, but it can happen. It's just extremely unlikely. So Helmholtz had an answer for that, but I'm promoting I'm Feynman and others talked. I could talk physics forever, but a probabilistic approach is more real, but it's immensely unsatisfying. And that's why there's so much resistance to it because
I'm a
people seek
Bayesian,
certainty.
yeah, I'm a Bayesian epistemologist, so I'm all about probabilities.
There
But
you go.
if time itself doesn't exist, there's no time over which there's a probabilistic nature to anything. Probabilities require time. There
Time
can't
does
even be a
exist.
probability without time. You have
Well,
to have
that's
cause and effect, right?
again.
Like
it's turtles
you're
all the way
basically
down.
saying that not every
Here,
effect has a cause.
I
I
He
have
think
a
said it's turtles all the way down.
Can I say?
the thing, what you're saying is what's being said is before the Big Bang, time didn't exist, but
There
things
was no
did exist.
before. It's like saying
There
what's north of the North Pole.
there was a before, but time wasn't part of that before. That's all you're saying is time was not one of the things was before. So
Somebody,
that
go ahead.
doesn't mean the problem is that doesn't mean anything to us, beings that exist in time. It doesn't
I
mean
have an
anything.
answer, but
It has
Carlos.
no meaning.
Did anybody consider the fact that just as the universe expanded from the Big Bang, it could also possibly have contracted
That's
into
called the
something,
big. That's
meaning
called
The
multiple
big
universes?
crunch,
Yeah, that's
and
called
it's
the big
cyclical, right?
crunch. Is the
Yeah,
accepted theory. Now,
that there
my hypothesis is similar to that, Carl, but I'll do another event. I'll put it back on the calendar because most people here
I
haven't seen it.
believe in a couple of minutes, but the only thing I wanted to say is, Garrett, you're a big fan of AI. You check everything through AI. All I'm going to say, just put that through AI. Mike did
I
it
know
with
what AI says, and I've read the research studies. I've read the research studies themselves, and AI makes mistakes, Carl.
Let me throw out a possibility, Garrett.
never
Since
say that
since
except
AI disagrees with you so much, is it possible that that the research studies that you looked at was not comprehensive?
Show me a research study that doesn't do what I said, Mike, and then I'll look at it with an
Why
open
don't you
mind.
ask the AI to list
that's all I'm
the
saying.
research studies that it's relying
I
on
did use an
and
AI
map
to
it
find
against
the
your
research
list?
studies that I looked into,
Uh-huh.
and that's what I found. So if you can find a research study that the AI couldn't find when I ran it, like probably a year or two ago, then go ahead, show it to me.
I'm
Um,
puzzled as to how AI has this
no
terrible
time to
bias.
prove points or to disagree or to
Because AI,
correct it. I'm not standing corrected on this one, which I find surprising.
because
And
I'm
all I'm
not
saying
wrong,
is just look
Carl.
at.
I'm not
I know you're
wrong.
saying you're not wrong. You're refusing
Yeah.
to change your mind, which is, this is all recorded. That's fine.
Yep.
You find the evidence of what you claim to want to do and you're not doing.
No, I
All I'm
am
saying
doing it.
is try to
I
convince you. I'm
listened.
going to say go with AI and try to
Carl, I got a
Carl,
question for you. You seem to weight what is considered scientifically rigorous. How
yeah.
many psychological schools are scientifically rigorous and held to be valid at this point in time?
I do not know.
None.
All I
None of
know,
them? The
I
answer
don't
is
know.
none of them?
I do not know the answer.
It's
Okay.
brain
Terry
science.
apparently
Freud.
does, though.
The answer
Well,
is brain science.
Is Freud
Physical
considered
brain science.
scientifically rigorous?
The only thing I know for sure.
Carl Jung? No.
Okay, well, can
Hell
I
no.
respond?
Well,
Can I
hold
respond?
on.
That's a
Can I
Now, Carl,
respond?
Carl, you're interrupting Kerry.
that's
Let
a
him
double
finish.
no to you.
He's asking a question. I'd
Right?
like to respond, and I'm not
Let him
even
finish
sure.
asking his
Let
question,
Carl
and then you
talk.
All
can
right.
You wanted
respond.
I'm
to do
saying I can list them all, and they all claim to have the answer. And they can't all be right.
that's
But here's
true.
the
I agree.
question. This
I
is the
agree.
challenge. Then
Say,
I'll let you respond.
Please, just
If
Okay.
they
Are they useful to therapists? The answer is yes. And I think that's where you can kind of bring this together between these different schools, Big Five, MTBI, whoever the hell is using it can find it useful without it being the end all be all final solution in a scientific sense.
utility does matter. Thanks for that,
yeah,
Gary.
and all I'm trying to do is say one sentence, which is my position. That's all I've been trying to do all night. One sentence from my position, and I don't think I've been heard. So if I could say that, and then I'll log off
go
because I have
ahead.
to. Okay, my position is the fact that it is the only one that's being scientifically used in scientifically research on personality research says something. I don't know if it is. I don't know if something is better than the other. I'm not claiming any of that. All I'm saying, and I would also recommend the documentary that I saw because that goes really deep into what we're discussing, and that was educational. So that's what I'm going to say as well, because it covers all of them, not just MBTI. That the fact that it's the only one being used scientifically says something to me. That's all. That's all I'm claiming. And if you want to say no, it's not being used scientifically, or MBTI is not, or for whatever reason, that's the other
Everyone
We're
part.
heard
hearing
you,
a
Carl.
narrative
I
that
heard
that's
you. I
because
know
of a
that the
kind of
PhDs and
academic conspiracy and bias. That's the narrative we're hearing.
Sorry?
Go ahead, Mike, say that again.
We're hearing a narrative that the reason for that is because there's an academic bias and an academic. It's because there's a sort of an academic conspiracy to prop up academic things, and
that
there's bias. So the narrative is a rejoinder to that, to what you're saying.
And
I don't agree with
the
but I'm just saying
accusation is
there is a
that
narrative.
the other accusation, the real, that was the one that a PhD in psychology said to me. That wasn't my perspective. That was the PhD in psychology's
And we call
perspective, to
that
be clear.
anecdotal.
It's anecdotal, I agree. But my perspective is I read the studies criticizing the MBTI,
Right.
and they were not measuring in an apples to apples way as the
Mhm.
studies measuring the Big Five. And if
Mhm.
you want to come to consistent results, you need to measure them the same way. That's all I'm saying. And the
So
fact is, like, if that's been done, show me a study that's done it, because I was unable to find one.
I'll suggest this. If MBTI was wronged, and I think they were wronged in a statistical sense, can you move from that to a position that they are, that they are valid, that they are scientifically rigorous and all the rest, if they've been wronged, they've been wronged, and that's terrible. But it doesn't really speak to their validity.
Are they predictive?
Well, according to Gemini, 40% of people who take MBTI test differently, substantially differently, or differently, let's say, 1 month later. Now, we heard somebody come on and say that, I think, was he talking? I couldn't tell if Alan was talking about MBTI or Big Five, but I thought he said he tested consistently.
He was talking about Big Five.
I personally have tested.
I see Kevin's name up. He hasn't spoken all night. I'd love to hear from Kevin.
I'll just say I've been consistent on MBTI myself. Okay. Yeah.
Go ahead, Kevin. You're on mute, Kevin.
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm usually just getting down in the background and just listening most of the time, but I just wanted to add on to this thing. So there's a few things I want to say. The first thing I have to say is that I've used all of these different personality tests when it comes to MBTI, Big Five, Ocean, Enneagram, and all that stuff. And what I do instead, after using them for so many years, is that I actually combine it and actually form my own type of personality type indicator, which I call IDPTI, which is in-depth personality type indicator, which uses MBTI as for indication purposes and for identification purposes. So is used as the big picture of looking at a person. But when it comes to the specifications, that's when I combine the Enneagram as well as the Ocean or Big Five in order to look at the personality statistics of the person. So looking at the actual specifications as a small picture, which makes up the big picture, as well as using the modified MBTI to actually look at the indication of the personality type. And not only that, but also looking at all possibilities when it comes to percentage levels, when it comes to looking at the percentage level of the I to the E and all those different parts of the aspects of the different personality indications. So there are different things that were added on in order to look at those nuances when it comes to, if let's say you're 50%, 50-50 when it comes to introvert and extrovert, there's an actual other type of letter used for indication on that type of case if it's on a consistent pattern no matter what tests you take in order when it comes to MBTI. So actually combine all of those things in order to have a full picture, because I like to collect as much information in order to see how things come together as a network. So that's how I use personality type in all of those different personality tests. So that's one thing I want to say. Another thing I want to say is that your dating, what is it called again? I'm looking for the name
Veritas
again.
Circles. It's for friendship and dating both.
Yeah, I have a question on that because I was just listening and stuff. So, of course, it's browser-based, obviously, right? Or
Correct.
do you have an app? You building an app on that?
Right now it's browser-based. We're building an app for Stay in Touch first. We have to build the app separately from the browser. So we're building little by little.
Okay, so is it your own? Of course, I'm just gonna guess it's a LLM. You're using an LLM when it comes to that, a large language model, right? Is it your own model? Is it your own model that you build for it, or you're using a third-party model?
We use frontier models, but through the APIs, so there's no learning. Like none of your data gets shared with the frontier models because it's done through APIs. But we use frontier models for the AI functionality.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just was curious about that whole build of the AI and the model that you use and stuff.
So just to be clear, it's actually a combination. There are certain things that we use frontier models for, and I've developed some of the AI algorithms myself. So that's been my career. I developed AI algorithms my whole career. So some of the algorithms are my own, and then some of them are frontier models, depending on what's like more appropriate to the situation.
Okay. Yep. That's it. Just wanted to articulate those two parts. So, yep. Finito for now.
Cool. All right. Well, I gotta shut down.
There's your daughter.
There's my Aaliyah Mia
Time
who
to
wants
say
me to put
goodnight.
her
Just
to bed.
ask her and we'll get the right answer.
Hi, beautiful. Hi, beautiful. Thank you, Garrett.
Thank you all. Great to see you. Thanks for the great conversation and
Yeah.
the great comments and questions. Hope everyone has a great rest of your night. And I will hopefully see you guys again. I may not be here next week. Next week, I have another event I need to be at, but Carl's going to host the Socrates Cafe next week. And then we're going to reschedule next week's event for the next open night. And then hopefully, if I'll do a friend finding night where we can do speed friending and sort of just see who out of the group that shows up or that prepares, because you kind of have to answer questions in advance, who would make good friends, and we'll get to know some new friends and maybe be able to
Great.
stay in touch with them. So
I appreciate all you guys. Thanks a lot.
same.
Take care.
Take care,
Thanks,
everyone.
Garrett.
Good night.
Bye bye.
Yes.